Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again, this time around, Tales of Arise demo review for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, for a game that is tentatively to be released on September 10th, 2021 for the aforementioned systems as well as PC. Tales of Arise is an action role-playing game associated with the Tales of series. This is actually the 17th mainline game in the series, and it goes about things a little bit differently than its most recent predecessors. Specifically, the graphics and the presentation, the overall aesthetics are a lot less cartoonish, and though still anime heavy, feel a lot more natural and realistic compared to its predecessors. But from a gameplay perspective, this is where Arise definitely differentiates itself from its previous entries, because it simplifies the combat system and really the overall menu and equipment system back down to a lot of the roots of what made the Tales game so enjoyable back in the days. In this demo, we get the chance to play as one of 6 characters. You can actually switch between the characters either during battle or through the menu, which I love as an implementation. It's so easy to reformat a strategy and try to figure out what's working and what isn't in the heat of battle without having to die and start all over again. There are 2 base attacks that you want to utilize with each character that you're playing as. You can use, of course, regular attacks that do very little damage, and you can do the arts. You can have up to 6 arts equipped at a time. 3 for when you're on the ground, and 3 when you're jumping in the air and trying to do aerial maneuvers, or if you propelled or juggled an enemy and you jump into the sky and you're trying to follow up with a combo. These arts are not connected to, say, MP or magic points, but little nodes that show up above the health bar of each character, and those nodes go away and go down as you utilize these specific arts. Now, the only way you can replenish these arts during battle is by utilizing regular attacks, so you have to mix and match. Now, the biggest thing is the meters that fill up connected to every character during battle. And when these meters fill up, you can hit the directional pad in correlation with whatever character has filled up their meter to produce a unite attack. Now, these unite attacks are the heavy duty damage attacks, and they can really help and push the onslaught. That ties into what also is a break meter, a break gauge that is associated with every enemy. And if you empty that gauge and you break an enemy, you can utilize a full all-out strike attack. By once again hitting the directional pad, you can do this big strike attack that's usually a double team maneuver that does massive damage. Now, some enemies also have weak points that are glowing orange, so you can easily identify them. And if you hit those weak points, of course, that also does major damage and also helps deplete the break meter. Now, with this being an action RPG, you have to be on your toes as well, because if an enemy, say, charges at you, they will knock out a big chunk of health, especially if it's a bigger enemy, or they jump into the air and try to squash you. While you can, of course, use healing items and restorative items, it's a lot easier just to use the dodge button at the right time, especially if an enemy's almost about to hit you and you dodge at the perfect time. It will actually slow down time that will allow you to get your bearings and land a big attack if you can. The enemy variation in the demo is actually quite good. It gives you the ability to really test out all 6 characters. Every character plays differently. Some are spellcasters, some, in the case of one of my favorites as I played through the demo a lot more, Shione, is a long-range shooter. And then you have someone like Law, who I started off the demo with, being a short-range martial artist who uses hand-to-hand combat so he can get in, hit hard, and get back out. From a gameplay perspective, I did enjoy a lot of what Tales of Arise has to offer. I also understand with this being the demo, they give you a lot of different tools that you probably won't have at that point in the game. And also the demo does tell you that this progress doesn't carry over, so that pretty much tells you that they kind of set it up so you can really enjoy the experience more than trying to figure out how you're going to survive. Beyond the gameplay, there are some other implementations that you get to experience in this demo, including collecting items that you can use to either go by a campfire and cook a meal that can either boost your health for a temporary time or even make meals better for those who enjoy them. You can also use the items that you find throughout the world to craft accessories at the storefront, wherever you find one, which is, in the case of this demo, a guy by a tree. And the crafting of accessories is very, very simplistic and works incredibly well because you don't have to really go out of your way to try to find all of these little items and be involved in this complicated process. Instead, you go to the storefront, select craft accessory in the menu, and then you see what items you can craft, and that's all you have to do. And a lot of these items that you can craft are very beneficial, like more health, more attack power, more defense. It's really good stuff. It's very old school, simplistic, and it works perfectly well. Of course, with this being more of a gameplay demo, there isn't much story to grab onto, so it's pretty hard to judge just how well the quality of the story is thus far, but from the dialogue that has been presented and some of the vocal interactions, it's actually quite good thus far. It's just not that much to grab onto to really give a good estimation of how good the story and the characters will be presented when the full game is released. Technically, I didn't have really any problems, any frame rate drops. The only thing I really struggled with, and maybe that's something that I haven't figured out or discovered, is how to really switch to hard lock on. You can lock on to enemies, but I couldn't figure out during the heat of battle how to switch from one enemy to another. And I was focusing on one very minuscule enemy and getting hit by the gigantic enemy, which I didn't want to happen. Another issue I did have with the gameplay is the fact that some of the enemies are very, very big. And the arena can be pretty small because they kind of cut off the battlefield. And there will be times where everyone gets kind of jumbled up and cluttered, and it's hard to differentiate who's getting hit and where until you start looking at the health and notice that one character has really dropped a lot of health before you even know it. Overall, as a demo, this is solely based on the gameplay, and I enjoyed a majority of what I experienced thus far. Was it a game seller type of demo? I really can't say, but for those who enjoy the Tales of games, especially the older versions, this definitely looks like it's going to be a very fun adventure, a very fun experience, and something that come September 10th should be well worth the wait. But for those who don't necessarily like action RPGs or aren't fond of the Tales games, I don't think this demo does much to get you excited to make you believe that, hey, this is going to be something different, extraordinary, or even memorable. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again. Tales of Arise demo review for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S for a game that is tentatively going to be released on September 10th, 2021 for the aforementioned systems and PC. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back and see if I can beat this scorpion bug creature a lot faster. Maybe it's a praying mantis, I guess, a mutated praying mantis. But no matter what it brings, I will strike it down and make it have no choice but to say, "Oh Lordy."